utána mit csinálnak? Visszakéne tolni. Nem gondoltam. Szóval van egy hát de
He's certainly defending it.
I think he is, and it's making a great race for us. But you can see now all 3 SR3s, line astern now, all in the tow. This is going to be a really... Herpy looks like he has the run here, so...
Oh, this could be interesting. It fans out almost
Mosley's
3 wide.
gone very deep as well. Ellis up on the curb on the inside trying to get the traction.
He's not going to quite do it, is he? And it's Yanni who's got the advantage of not having a car filling his mirrors, and he can pick and plot his lines in a way that Stuart and Bradley can't really.
Exactly, and Christian Jeffrey here just reeling them back in fourth, just watching all this unfolding, and he'll be ready to take a podium the moment any of these guys slip up.
So they kick their way out of the right-hander, and then this is a lovely section of the track actually, quite a quick entrance onto the downhill straight, and then almost a blind entrance as you turn through turns 5 and 6, and then it slows down at 7.
Yeah, and we're just seeing the same thing emerging each lap now. So Mosley does look like he has a bit more speed at the moment, but Booth now will back him up at this part of the circuit, and the threes, as it was the lap before, all come back together quickly.
Oh, that's a lovely move from Stuart Mosley as he pulls it off. Does he? As they come out, Mosley runs out very, very wide. Bradley Ellis gives racing room to Stuart Mosley as he slews back on the track. Stuart has to repay the favour and allows Bradley to slip past. Might also give Yanni Herpier the chance to challenge as well. And what that was also evidence of is that, and contact there between Yanni and Stuart.
Teammates there as well. There'll be some firm words back in the pit garage, but yep, everyone's still on the circuit, still really clean, really opportunistic move by Ellis there. Now he's got the job of attacking Booth, but also defending from Mosley.
But also, the way that Stuart was slipping wide there, it rained so hard overnight and into this morning that the grass and the edge of the track is still really very, very slippery. Now here is another look at, well, that was really actually Stuart coming back to the racing line rather than Yanni.
It was. I think that was, you can absolutely put that down to racing. There was nothing crazy there, but you know, this is good, close racing. Look how close the guys are, and yeah, long may it continue.
So now Bradley Ellis and Stuart Mosley into the jaws of the Mad Croc Racing back car, or Mad Croc back car of, is that just Angry Footwear, of Yanni Herpier. Then we've got Christian Jeffrey sitting and watching and waiting behind, and
this is good stuff though. You expect this sort of pace from Mosley and Ellis. They're some of the fastest radical pros out there, but from Jeffrey and Yanni behind, this really is a level up for them. So so excellent stuff to see.
Just wonder whether or not Bradley's running a car with quite high downforce that will suit Mark Crader a little bit later on, because he gave away a lot of ground to Jim Booth on the start and finish straight in comparison to Stuart Mosley on previous laps, and he's not actually really regained it so far over the course of the lap.
Well, it's interesting. I know, speaking to Ellis and Crader, they've made some changes to the car for this race. So they're hoping it's going to make it a little bit better. You know, at the moment, it looks okay. Mosley still looks like he has more pace than anyone else out there, but you're just going to have to wait and see in this one. And interestingly, it's the first lap. They haven't fully caught back up to the V8. So will we see the V8 start to stretch its legs a bit now? Who knows? It's
also for Jim Booth the chance to actually just drive a lap to the racing line rather than defend.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for Jim. He's come over from the US for this, and really is having to earn his win here.
As they swing out of the final turn, Jim should stretch his legs now. Stuart's in the tow here behind Bradley Ellis, and I'm not sure if Bradley's close enough to benefit from the tow from Jim. No, he's not. He moves across the inside, looks to the outside. Stuart Mosley sells in the dummy. Oh, that's lovely from Stuart Mosley. Launches to the inside. I think he enjoyed that enormously and regains the lead of the Supersport class. They're still side by side as they run downhill. And Stuart's going to squeeze out Bradley. Yes, he does.
Yeah, really classy move from Stu there. Really nice late move. Nice and clean. The guys gave each other space. Ellis trying to get the cut back, but now he really just needs to get his head down, try not to lose the place to Yanni, and get back to Booth.
Yeah, now it's, but also for Stuart Mosley, this is a chance. He's got almost a second of clear air ahead of him to actually try and put that gap over Bradley Ellis for the first time in the race, as Bradley's busy fending off Yanni Herpier as they clatter over the curbs.
A lot of curb there. See, Ellis actually looks relatively very strong through this part of the circuit. It's just that big drag down the start-finish straight that seems to hurt him.
Yeah, I would venture that he's just running a little bit more wing, and it's hurting in the straight line, as already Stewart right up with Jim Booth, and can't find a way past Jim. Now I think the challenge here for Jim is going to be, has he overextended the tyres during this early phase of the race? How does the physical drain come in?
Really starting to take a defensive line, so he wants to hang on there at the front as long as he can, but it's helping us because it just bunches that battle back up behind, and you know, Bradley now will be looking to get a cut back onto the front straight and just sit in the toe of Mosley. Yanni again looks like the pace man here, so could we see him moving into second?
I think we could, as they come past our commentary box, which is pretty much this camera angle. Yanni had almost drawn alongside Bradley Ellis, and he's going to go through Yanni Herpia and take the place off Bradley Ellis. Bradley breaks late, will look for the switchback. Yanni slithers wide, but not that wide. Oh, more contact, and a little puff of smoke on that occasion. And yeah, Bradley gesticulates, and through turn 3, they still, oh, this is tight, and Bradley regains the position.
Yeah, it's a hard race between these two. Unfortunately, we almost don't want this at this point. We want them to just keep clean, and that will keep the pack keeping up with Booth and keep it close. So,
and Christian Jeffrey is still there,
rubbing his hands together. I think at this point he's just seen tyre smoke coming out the side from contact. He is ready to strike the moment these guys get involved.
I think he's on the phone to his stockbroker asking if he can get some shares in whoever produces the nose cones, because he is certainly watching it getting very, very intense in front of him. And here is another look at it. So Yanni Herpia slithered wide. Bradley went for the cutback, and Yanni then moved across. And fortunately, it was side-on-side contact, so there wasn't too much in the way of damage. And again, Stuart Mosley's had a good lap. He is coming back onto terms with Jim Booth. Whether or not Jim will be able to sustain this for the whole race is the question. But at the moment it's wonderful because it is serving to back the whole field into itself.
Yeah, Jim driving a corker at the moment, you know, every lap in the 50s. This is, you know, lap after lap he's doing what he was doing his best lap times at yesterday. So he'll be happy, and he's giving us a great race by keeping these threes bunched up.
Certainly is, as they come along the front stretch again and again. Yanni Herpiu's got a good run here on Bradley Ellis, and he's going to dart to the inside once more. And it's deja vu again. This time he just couldn't quite get himself right the way alongside Bradley Ellis. But it means he does carry a little bit more momentum downhill and at turn 1. They run through the kink at turn 2, then into turn 3, swinging into the left-hander. Yanni to the outside. There's a lot of grip there today, but he can't quite draw alongside before they kick out at turn 4.
Yeah, this is a high-speed game of chess at the moment. These guys all trying different lines, different cutbacks. I think your guess is probably the best, actually, that Ellis must be carrying a bit more wing than Yanni. He just doesn't quite seem to have the straight line package. But you see through that early part of the lap, they're absolutely with Mosley now. You know, Jim Booth is not holding him up there in any sense of the word. So they've closed back up to Mosley, and I wonder if Mosley's rear tyre is starting to hurt a bit 15 minutes in now.
And also the other element is that both Yanni and Christian Jeffrey behind him, they've got the car set up solely to suit them, whereas for Stewart and Bradley, they've got to consider Brian Caldwell and Mark Crader for the second half of the race as well, in the way that the car's set up and also the condition they turned it over in.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, those guys will just be happy to get in these at the moment with a little bit of contact early on, but yeah, it's just holding on to that rear tyre, making sure you don't take too much, because to cool it down again is near impossible in this sort of ambient.
Yeah, and it's just a track where you really can't cool it down. As now Bradley Ellis is back up with Stuart Mosley. Stuart defending, sorry.
Yeah, Mosley absolutely feeling he's got to go defensive at this point. So this the first time we really see Mosley be caught on absolute pace. But again, Ellis having to look in the mirrors now. So this is a fantastic race.
It's lovely as Yanni Herpia comes out of the bubble, looks to the inside of Bradley Ellis, and he's going to go for it. He's going to go for even more as he jumps on the anchors almost to avoid spearing into Stuart Mosley, but he gains one position, and he now fends off Bradley Ellis. Stuart Mosley tries to fend off both of them as Bradley looks to fight back to the inside at turn 3.
Really quality move from Yanni there. Almost for Bradley now, the best thing would be to sit there and just try and let Yanni drag him back to Mosley. Yanni has a lot of straight line speed, so he could make the move on Mosley down the front straight if he gets the opportunity.
Now, what's interesting for me is that Stuart Mosley's not really romped away from this group and stayed with Jim Booth. If anything, he's sort of slipped back into them.
No, and as I was saying, we're genuinely now seeing Mosley isn't really the pace man. It is Yanni. He's the one who's clawing his way forward, and Jim Booth is away at the front now, and Mosley's been caught.
Yeah, and Yanni's looking every which, always looking more than every which way. A little bit of contact again to the tail of Stuart Mosley's car, and Yanni has got an absolutely fantastic car underneath him, at least for this phase of the race. But we're still in the early stages. We're just over 1/4 race distance. And I just really hope that they all manage to keep it on the island, because they are racing at a heck of a level of intensity.
Yeah, it really is heating up here. Let's hope the guys keep their heads. This is a great race, and it'd be nice to see it continue all the way through the pit window and after. So Ellis wide there. Will have picked up some muck on his tyres being off the circuit there. Just needs to keep an eye on track limits and make sure he doesn't do anything too exciting.
Yeah, and this is a look again at just a little bit of a tap from Yanni to the tail of Stuart, and then, well, there's an argument that Bradley was right in Yanni's blind spot there.
He was, yeah. I mean, this is close racing, but again, you can see Yanni's engine super fast down the straight, so he's either a hero and holding onto a car with no downforce through the twisty stuff and the faster corners, and then just making his time on the straight, or he's got a good engine there. So whatever, he's driving well, and it's good to see.
We certainly didn't slip in a V8 during the hiatus between qualifying and the race.
Yeah, it looks fast. So, but no, certainly hasn't done that. And let's see.
He's definitely running lower rear wing. If you look in a moment's time, you can see there's Stuart, there's Yanni, and well, maybe not, but they're all, well, certainly Yanni's not running the maximum rear wing on the car, in a way that maybe Bradley running a little bit more, but they're now just beginning to spread themselves out. So here is the race of the Jim Booth. Stuart from Yanni, then Bradley Ellis, Christian Jeffrey, who I expect is probably quite warm in there with the carbon fibre black lid on.
Yeah,
that'll be
well,
absorbing the heat.
Christian, our driver from Guyana, he's very versed with temperature, so this is a nice one for him. I was speaking to him when he came to England. It was a bit of a shock. So all we've seen him and his dad wearing is big jackets when they're at the English circuit. So this is nice for him.
I can say there's a trauma at going to somewhere like Pembrey testing in February that will take a long time to shake off if you're used to Guyana temperature.
Here we go again. Mosley back to Booth. He's managed to break away from Yanni, but now Booth will be slowing him down.
Oh.
Yanni wide.
Yeah, and you could hear that before we saw it.
Are they going to back up again? This could put the race right back on the table again.
And this is where the consistency starts to come to the fore. Now this is going to be indication, I think, of who's got the straight line punch, because Bradley making no inroads whatsoever into Yanni. Obviously Jim breaking clear of Stuart. Then on the brakes, it looked from that angle as if Yanni is running a little bit lower rear wing angle than Bradley Ellis, certainly.
Definitely something for Bradley to think about for tomorrow's race. But wouldn't it be great to see these guys all back together? I mean, Mosley really isn't breaking away. I mean, Yanni will be delighted with this. All the guys at Nielsen will be, but you can see he's pushing so hard. Wide there, just a little bit fast in. Hopefully he's not going to start overdriving here, because he's driven a blinder so far, so it'd be nice to see it continue. Well,
this is always the risk, isn't it, when you're mixing it maybe with people you don't sometimes race wheeled with all the time, is once you get out of that rhythm, particularly somewhere like here at the Hungaroring, can take a while to establish it, because already he's made a couple of errors this lap, and it means that Bradley is immediately back with him.
For sure, and ultimately Mosley and Ellis, these are guys who are making their living at this sport, so Yanni really driving well to be able to compete with these guys, and but we've seen Mosley there, he's past Booth, he's managed to make a jump there to get past him, so it's all starting to work out for the Caldwell and Mosley car.
Oh, more slipping and sliding behind, and we did wonder, didn't we, at the very start of the race, was Yanni pushing too hard for those tyres too early? Because, yeah, he is...
he's off the circuit a lot at the moment, so he's going to have to watch himself for track limits, but wide again, so yeah, Ellis is passed now, so, but we know how fast Yanni's engine is down the straight, so let's see how he gets on this run. Ellis will be in the mirrors, just trying to keep him behind, get his head down and chase Mosley. Yeah,
the warning flag for track limits, not to anybody's great surprise, has been proffered to Yanni. It's also being it's to Yanni and also car 10, John Caldwell, who we've not really seen much of. Ellis able to defend from Yanni as they slither downhill. But Yanni again draws alongside. Meanwhile, Stewart, crucially, has stayed ahead of Jim Booth.
Yeah, tactically that's important for Mosley. Although every second he spends racing Jim Booth, he's losing time to these guys behind. So it's starting to hot up.
We're just over 1/3 race distance. We're not a million miles away from the pit window opening now. We would expect to see Stuart Mosley and Bradley Ellis staying out reasonably deep into the pit window.
Yeah, tactically that will definitely be the best move for them, and that's not because their teammates aren't fast. They are, but they are the faster of the drivers. So it's just the best move. Move them as far up the road as they can be.
So if I was on the pit wall, I'd be pulling in Christian Jeffrey as early as I could in the pit window.
That would make sense. That would really make sense for them. Get the tyre pressures bled down and give him a bit of encouragement. Make sure he's going out there to chase hard for the second half of the race, because you can see one slip here and Christian will be straight into the mix.
Well, that's the thing. He's not had any clear air all race. You just want to give him a couple of laps worth of an undercut, see what that can do for him, because
exactly, you see in the SR3 class here as well, we've got the Works versus Nielsen battle. So Nielsen, one of the big customer teams, in SR3, they run Mosley, the Works team running the second car, Nielsen running Yanni, and the Works team running Christian. So really is a close battle, and inter-rivalry between teams as well as drivers here.
Yeah, Jim Booth just beginning to slip away from Stuart Mosley now. He's 2.7 seconds back as they cross the line at the end of that last lap.
Fastest lap of the race as well for Mosley, a 48.7, so really good pace. We thought for a second he might have started to hurt his rear tyre, but it looks like he's got his head down now. He's in a great rhythm. Ellis with a 49.3, so 6/10 between them. So Ellis with work to do, but the hard thing being that he's got to clear Jim Booth. He's faster than him, but we know with the V8 it's faster in different parts of the lap.
Up the slight incline for Stuart Mosley as he kicks through turn 6 on towards turn 7. What you can't see from this camera angle is there's a massive great water park immediately above the camera, which we can see from the commentary box. And that is probably the best view of a racing circuit you get from a water slide anywhere in Europe, as Bradley looks to close up onto Jim Booth through the chicane. Yanni's now slipped back from Bradley. He is in the clutches of Christian Jeffrey. And those gaps now just starting to extend a little bit. But Bradley still unable to hustle his way past Jim Booth. And it means that as Jim gets to the end of the lap, he should be able to squirt it down the start and finish straight and retain the place.
That's it. Bradley trying to duck out from behind Jim, try and put him off, try and make him outbrake himself just a little bit. But Jim, a pretty experienced campaigner, he's not going to fall for that. So he just knows he's got to get onto that front straight and get a second or two between him and Bradley.
And every time Yanni Herpier turns into a corner, you can just hear the tyres protesting as Bradley looks every which way to try and hustle past Jim Booth. And Christian Jeffrey was actually looking to do much the same to Yanni as they sprint through. And this reels off their 13th lap of the race with John Caldwell and Gerhard Watzinger just a little bit adrift of this leading quintet.
I think Christian's the sleeper here. He's been sensible. He's looked after his tyre. You're hearing Yanni start to have some really leery moments in the background. So Christian looks like he's been quite conservative. He's got a good car underneath him. Still a real tip for the podium here.
Yeah, I think he would fancy his chances maybe against Mark Crader and Brian Caldwell as well in the second half of the race.
I think, again, Crader and Caldwell both had good pace this weekend. The challenge they're going to have is they're getting straight into a hot car. They don't know what's underneath them. It's going to take them 2 or 3 laps just to feel exactly what they have got. Whereas the other guys, Yanni and Christian, they know what's there. They've boxed. They'll have sat for 45 seconds and they'll be straight out at it. So, yeah, this is going to be a really interesting second half.
So I think the pit window is open now. They have to go past the pit lane open board before they can pit in. So it's going to be the end of the next lap when that change occurs.
See Mosley with another fastest lap of the race. So really important laps for him. He needs to extend as much as he can for Brian Caldwell, so that when he's in the car, it doesn't expose him to Yanni and it doesn't expose him to Christian. So Bradley with a run here. Can he make a move on the V8?
No, not with Jim Booth covering the inside line like that. Bradley looks to the outside. Now, torque may take him past, but even on that very short squirt, you can see the straight line speed of the V8. And Jim should be able to romp away. As they head down the start and finish stretch, they'll go past the pit lane open board. They will be aware that they can pit in from the end of this lap that they've just started.
Critically, Yanni coming back into Ellis, so all that messing around with the V8 is great for us to watch, but it does cost him time, and he just needs to keep his head down, keep pushing. Jeffrey still sat there behind him.
Yeah, Christian Jeffrey, his best lap of the race so far has been a 1 minute 50.1, which is the same as Jim Booth's best lap, actually, to within a couple of hundredths of a second, whereas Mosley's been in the 1 minute 48, Bradley and Yanni in the 1 minute 49s.
Yeah, so Yanni actually with his best lap on the last lap, so he's not given up. He's had a couple of laps just to recover, gather himself, and he's pushing hard again. So and the pit window on now. So like you said, if I was a team, I think I'd have my single drivers in fairly early, get the tyres sorted, get them back into the race.
Yeah, I think in particular for Yanni, you might just want to have a bit of a play with the tyre pressures. For Christian, it's whether or not they can affect an undercut for him and feed him out clear of some of the rest. So Stuart Mosley leads by over 6 seconds, and Bradley Ellis got to be careful. That's the second lap in succession. He's been very wide out of that corner.
Yeah, he will get a track limits warning. Needs to very late dive there. So Jim starting to slow the guys up mid corner there. So and this will be hurting their race time. So the outside's always a brave choice here.
Gianni Herpiot darts to the pits, so you called it, Alex, and Christian also, I think, has gone into the pits because he is. So
well, that's going to be interesting to see. We've got a drag race in the pits between those two guys. They're absolutely all square. Let's see who emerges first.
There's Bradley Ellis looking in his mirrors, going, "Where have my friends gone?" And we'll realise they're both in the pit lane, and this is where you can't really gain time in the pits, but you can certainly lose it if things go wrong.
Absolutely. So it'll be a 45-second stop for these guys. Interestingly, like we say, Jim Booth and the SR3s getting together is slowing them down. 2 seconds a lap. Stuart Mosley's been pulling whilst they fight. So Ellis will want to clear as quick as he can past that V8.
Yeah, and Stuart he's a good 8 seconds clear of the rest of the field. For Jim, this has been very, very good performance for Jim so far. I think the big question though is whether or not he's going to be able to sustain this sort of pace through to the checkered flag, given the amount of running he's done defensively. He's been offline, he's probably been spinning up the wheels a little bit earlier than he would have liked, and all of that is going to start to become a little bit attritional for the Dunlop tyre.
Yeah, this is a twisty one for the V8. Lots of second and third gear throttle zones. Ellis off the circuit there again. There will be a track limits warning. He really does need to manage that. So again.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 4 times in the last 2 laps for Bradley Ellis, and that is where Brian Poulter and race direction start to run out of patience a little bit.
Yeah, the runoff there in case you need it in case of the worst happening, but if you use it every lap, it can be deemed gaining an advantage. So he needs to keep his nose clean and stay off that. He's just anxious, you can see, to get past the V8, but he's not going to be able to do it here. It will stretch its legs down the straight.
Well, what Bradley would say is that because I'm in the turbulent air behind the V8, that's why I'm understeering out wide, which...
He's a wily racing driver.
Yeah.
There's some great excuses for anything that happens.
And, yep, warning flag goes out to car number 20 for track limits. Now, where that starts to get a little bit more serious is this is still only a half race distance, and it means the next couple of offences,
well,
and you start to get into penalty territory.
Exactly that, and I believe from the rules that warning sits with the car, not the driver. So Mark Crader really probably on a zero tolerance drive now, so he won't be able to breach track limits at all. So you saw Yanni out there.
Yeah, he's just completed his pit stop, and there is John Caldwell, who has also been in the pits, I would presume.
Now, potentially, Christian's leapfrogged him in the pits, and I'm wondering whether that's probably an upshot of the Portimao round of European Masters that Yanni did, and some good results there. So he may have had a longer stop.
Yeah, possibly some success seconds that were carried over as Gerhard Watzinger is into the pits in one of the works cars, judging by the livery.
Ellis has made the move, so a last-minute lunge on Booth there, so he'll be using these corners now, just try and put some clean space between he and the V8. Again, just about on maybe there if you took a favourable view. You know, pushing hard, knows he needs to have at least a second or two of clean air between he and the V8 before they get on that start-finish straight, but this he will do that now with this little sequence.
Yeah, the brown envelope of £5 notes wasn't proffered by Bradley earlier, so the favourable view might be slightly harder to come by in my case. But his look at the move, it was very nice. Slipping to the inside, oh, and running very wide there, John Caldwell, out over the curbs. And now Bradley has got the chance to put in some clear laps, but he's 11 seconds back from Stuart Mosley. As into the pit lane comes Jim Booth. So Booth peels into the pits, gets down to 60 kilometres per hour, pit speed limit.
Interestingly, Ellis with his best first and last sector on that lap, so he's got the bit absolutely between his teeth now. This will be a clear lap for him. Be interesting to see if he can knock in some good sectors and try and make up some of that 11-second deficit.
As there is Brian Caldwell, which would suggest that Stuart Mosley is coming in at the end of this lap.
Yeah, the change window's on. See Jim Booth getting out now for the refuelling. And Jim without his son Ryan here this weekend, so it would have been great to see Ryan and how he went round here. I see Ellis now with John Caldwell, so trying to get through that and trying to get some clear air to make the most of actually being past the V8.
It's one of those races for Bradley Ellis, isn't it? As soon as it looks like he's got some clear air, he's got another car to close up to, and given how short the braking distances are in these SR3s, it's not going to be the work of a moment for Bradley Ellis to pick his way past.
No, and John, another seasoned campaigner, so he's not an easy man to pass. So you see Ellis all over him.
Oh, when around goes John Caldwell. He sends Bradley Ellis off, taking evasive action. Now, has he lost the engine there, John Caldwell? Possibly.
Ellis read that well, gave him space, and no, he's off. Excellent, back in the race.
And yeah, Bradley could see that coming. Actually gave John plenty of room to have his incident. And here's another look at it. Bradley looked to the inside. John turned in, asked a bit too much, and around he goes. Look at it from this angle. And
yeah,
also great presence of mind there from John Caldwell to jump on the anchors, because it just slowed the car enough to avoid him skittling into Bradley. So here is our race leader, Stuart Mosley. His lead over Bradley Ellis, 15 seconds.
Yeah, that really that moment with John Caldwell there really has helped put an extra couple of seconds between Stuart and Bradley.
Everybody else has pitted. So Christian Jeffries in third. Jim Booth has emerged from the pits in fourth. Yanni Herpier is fifth, and he's now 20 seconds back from Christian Jeffrey, but flying. Gerhard Watzinger is sixth, and John Caldwell into seventh as a result of that rotation.
Let's see what the again. I think Brian Caldwell had a podium at the last round in Portimao, so it'd be interesting to see if he carries some pit stop penalty over. We could see Mark Crader jump in front of him.
Yeah, because the way that performance is balanced out through the season is you get success seconds if you finish on the podium in preceding races. That can accumulate as just out to the white line there from Stuart Mosley. Very smooth work this from Stuart. He is going to have to pit in at the end of this lap because the pit lane closed board is going to be proffered in 26 seconds time. And well, Stuart could sneak another lap if he really wanted to. He does really want to, as he heads through the final hairpin. And he's going to be able to get the benefit of an extra lap in the stint by 8 seconds. And that's a luxury that's not going to be afforded to Bradley Ellis. So he is going to have to come in to pass over to Mark Crader.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this shakes out after the pit stops. Ellis with his fastest middle sector of the race there. He is in clean air at last and will be trying to capitalise. Having to pit this lap won't have been in the plan for him, but there he is going down pit lane as we speak.
Now his deficit to Stuart Mosley was about 15 seconds at the point at which he peeled in. So Mark Crader will take over. Bradley comes to a halt.
There he is, out the car. Nice little hop there.
Years of training.
Peak of physical fitness, that man.
Meanwhile, our race leader, Stuart Mosley, is on his way towards the pits at the end of this lap. Just navigates the chicane. It's a little squirt on towards turns 10 and 11. And then kink at turn 12, and it's turn 13 that propels them onto the short back straight. Jim Booth has just done the fastest first sector of anybody in the race so far, which...
Yeah. Certainly, this, you know, as the fuel burns off, the cars do get faster. But what's interesting here is Stuart Mosley here has driven a really good stint. So at the start, he was aggressive. He made a good assertive move past the V8 and managed to get some clean air, and has pushed on. And just small things like getting the extra lap here, strategy-wise, really does make a difference. So it will be a couple of extra seconds that Brian Corbell will carry, and you see him really pushing, laying dark lines into the pit lane there. You know, that pit lane entrance is part of the circuit. On the brakes, all the way down to 60 Ks. Looks like he's barely moving now, but you know, top stint there from Stu. Wouldn't expect anything less from him, but there we go.
So into the pit lane for Stuart Mosley. He'll pass over to Brian Caldwell, and when they emerge, we'll be able to give you the order and whether or not the gap's likely to come down in the remainder of the race, as it would appear as if Christian Jeffrey has been able, I'd imagine, through success seconds, possibly legacy for Mark Crader, to jump Mark through the pit stops. So the order, I think, when we get going, is it's going to be Brian Caldwell who leads, second place Christian Jeffrey, third Mark Crader, fourth Yanni Herpia, fifth Jim Booth, sixth Gerhard Watzinger, and seventh John Caldwell.
And the work team will be on the radio to Jeffrey, giving him the big push now. So just set his fastest lap of the race, a 49.9. They'll be telling him, you know, Brian's getting into the car, you need to chase, you need to chase. There may be some success penalties for Brian, so let's see where they end up. And could we see Jeffrey for an outright win here? Or will it be Caldwell? Who knows? We
will find out the next 20 minutes or so as we follow Jim Booth, who currently circulates in 5th position. Still waiting for the signal that Brian Caldwell has emerged from the pits. Meanwhile, Christian Jeffrey is across the line now. So Christian Jeffrey's just come past us, with Mark Crader trailing 2.5 seconds back still. And there comes Brian Caldwell. So Caldwell must have had even more success seconds from Portimao. So
wow, we're going to have a great race on our hands now then. So, very close on the blend line there. So let's hope that wasn't an infringement. I don't think it was, but fingers crossed the Clarks have the same view. Mark Crader there, sporting a very jazzy new helmet. So hopefully worth some lap time now. We'll be hoping to close down Christian and maybe make a move himself on the outright lead.
So it's Christian Jeffrey who leads. Second place is Mark Crader. Third is Brian Caldwell. Fourth is Yanni Herpia. Fifth is Jim Booth. Sixth, Gerhard Watzinger. Seventh, John Caldwell. And the gaps are, Christian is 2.4 seconds clear of Mark Crader. Brian is then 7.37 seconds back from Mark. He's 9.7 seconds off the lead. And then Yanni Herpia is a long, long way back from there. 16 seconds further back for Yanni in fourth. And then it's about another 30 seconds or so back to Jim Booth. So there are gaps that could be chased down, but Christian didn't have to push the car in the opening phase of the race, and just wonder whether or not he's got actually a little bit more potential underneath him to really stretch his legs at this point.
Yeah, interestingly, looking at them sector-wise here, Mark getting into the car fresh, you know, no experience in the car, but feeling fresh, and on this lap so far through the first 2 sectors, only dropping 0.2 of Christian, so he hasn't given up on an outright win here. We're going to see him chase as hard as he can.
As he just has to be careful not to run out too wide as they come out of the hairpin. Still 20 minutes left to run. Christian extends his lead by 0.4 over the course of that last lap in the end, so he's 2.7 seconds back, and in turn Brian Cordell in his outlap, lost time to Mark Crader. Now, the wild card in all of this is going to be Yanni Herpier in fourth, because Yanni is 15 seconds back from Brian and has the potential to chase down some of that.
Crader getting quite wide there. As we said, he's going to have to be very careful with track limits here. So his teammate pushed really hard early on, but did get the warning. So Crader having to be careful, but looks like he's cracking on. He's chasing down Christian, and going to be interesting to see how it shapes up with Brian Caldwell. So Crader with 1 lap more experience at the moment, owing to being in the car a bit earlier. Sector-wise, they're both pulling away from Brian at the moment, but Brian will be on a charge. He'll want second or first in this race.
Yeah, nothing to choose between Christian and Mark through the opening sector at Sector 2, where we might start to see Christian beginning to ease away from Mark Crader, who we spoke with Mark briefly before the start of the race, and he wasn't rating that highly his chances of finishing on the podium. We will say nothing because we don't want to put the curse on him, and therefore it would be our fault if anything went wrong. But that's been a very, very good middle sector from Christian Jeffrey. He gains 8/10 over Mark Crader as John Caldwell. It's the same corner.
The same spin, so just without Ellis this time. So yeah, John will be going back on the data after this in the video, trying to understand that what that was. Speaking with Stuart Mosley, trying to understand how he can stop that happening again.
You see, motorsport's so much softer these days. When I was in Formula Ford, I once spun twice in a qualifying session at Surtees and got called into the clerk of the course, and he said, "Is there something wrong with the car?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, in that case, you're an idiot because you crashed in the same place twice."
I'll let you tell John that.
Which I'm not going to be passing on to John. Now here is Mark Crader, who's now 4.5 seconds back from Christian Jeffrey, and Christian setting a personal best lap of the race, easing away from Mark Crader, and Mark is also starting to pull away from Brian Caldwell, who is being caught by Yanni, but Yanni's still got a lot of ground to make up and possibly not enough time to make it in. So Yanni's he's almost 12 seconds back from Brian Caldwell, but he is almost 2 seconds a lap quicker. So here is our second place man, Mark Crader.
Again, Crader matching Jeffrey in the first sector, another 39.9. The two of them blow for blow in this first one, but as you say, it's that middle sector that Jeffrey seems to be able to stretch a little bit away.
And what's really interesting as well is that Bradley had that car at all angles in the first half of the race, but as Mark's jumped into it, you can see that Mark has got that car working exactly to suit his driving style and how he'd like it to.
Far more considerate driver, I think. Ellis was obviously just pushing too hard. No, you know, Bradley pushing every bit of performance he can out of that car. You know, top level pro, so we'll be extracting every bit he can. Mark again learning a lot, coming on well this year, some great results. You know, again just building on his experiences. Both Jeffrey and Crader's first trip here to the Hungaroring. So, you know, they'll be delighted to be sitting 1 and 2 in the race at the moment and learning every lap.
Just trying to cast my mind back to 2014 when I think the Radical European Masters were last here. If anybody in the field today was in that race, possibly Yanni from memory. As over the line comes Christian Jeffrey. And again, he just eases 8/10 out over Mark Crader. So Christian Jeffrey, with just over a quarter of the race to run, is now really exactly where he'd like to be, which is at the front of the field, pulling clear of those around him, and he can really just pick and choose his pace. Mark Crader, that last lap he gave away a little bit to Brian Caldwell, but not to any sort of extent that's going to cause him concern. Yanni Herpier, though, continues to chase down Brian Caldwell. He's now just over 10 seconds back, and at the current rate of capture and the time remaining, means Yanni might be with Brian just as we head into the final couple of laps of the race.
Crader there with just catching a little bit too much apex curb, lifting the car up and moving him out, so he's held on to it and pushing on.
Well, Mark Crader, one of the drivers who's come up through the Radical SR1 Challenge, and in the paddock this weekend we've got the new SR1 on display.
Yeah, new SR1 car sat down at the Radical Hospitality, so a huge amount of interest in it. Certainly a car that is going to make waves in the UK over the future and the following weeks. So some really exciting announcements coming everyone's way on the SR1 program, and it will feed as a great ladder into motorsport and up to the SR3 and who knows SR8 ranks. And
also the package price that was being advertised is in motor racing terms extremely good value.
Yeah, the car will come out at around or potentially just under the £40,000 mark, which, when you consider the performance it offers, is really quite incredible. So and it's a simple car to run. So for any father and son team or racing team out there for that matter, it's something that can work for them easily.
If I just save up another £39,500, then I'll be buying one.
Well, we could club in. It's just 39 to go then. So
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, excluding debts from earlier racing careers. So in my case, as along in third place, here is Brian Corwell. You just see in the background Yanni Herpia.
Oh, very close. So 4 seconds difference there, and Yanni with the fastest final sector of the race. So Yanni can smell that podium. He wants it back from Brian, and Brian obviously, yeah, there we go. That's the mistake. There we go. So that was what lost him the time. So he knows he's got to push, and the team will be on the radio telling him that Yanni's coming.
And it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because actually the pace that Brian was running at in the 1 minute 50s may have just been enough to keep Yanni at bay. But all it takes is that mistake, and now Yanni's just a couple of laps maybe away from closing up and challenging Brian.
Yeah, well, and critically now Yanni will see Brian. So that's for any racer, that is the fight. He can see the car coming. He will want it now more than ever. And you can see his personal fastest first sector of the race, half a second in the first sector alone out of Brian. So 13 minutes to do it. You'd have to say at the moment he's going to get there. So this is quite exciting stuff.
And the thing with Yanni as well is he has been so aggressive all race with that car, and at the moment everything he's asking of the tyre, it's rewarding him with.
Yeah, he's certainly found a sweet spot there. The Nielsen guys have obviously worked with him well and given him a really fast car. So he's not backing down. He's driving well, completely within track limits, no issues there. So, and we know he's got a lot of engine down the front straight. So he's certainly a tip for the podium.
This is the fight that's most likely to change hands between now and the end of the race, because Christian Jeffrey continuing to ease away from Mark Crader. That goes out now to 6.8 seconds at the end of the 25th lap. With then, what can Brian Corbell offer us on this lap? Looking from the commentary box, Brian comes past now, a 1 minute 50.8. Yanni, a 1 minute 48.8, so another 2 seconds to Yanni. Here is Jim Booth then in 5th position. And Jim, he's just faded a little bit in the second half of the race. And I think it goes to show, as you were talking about a few minutes ago, Alex, that when you've got cars around you, you've got a really good reference and you're just learning all the while. This is where I can push, this is where I can't. And now he's on his own. The pace has just slipped away a little bit.
For sure, and the V8 is a handful around a twistier circuit like this. You know, as you say, he's got the same amount of downforce, the same brakes and the same tyres as the SR3, but just 200 horsepower more and 125 kilos extra. So his rear tyres will be hurting a lot more at this point in this heat than the SR3. So he'll be doing well just to hang on to it, and it was just great seeing him in the early parts of the race having such a good one.
Gerhard Watzinger en route to 6th place, and he has stayed out of trouble, and that means that through the pit stops in the second half of the race, he'll be able to get the jump on John Caldwell. For
sure, and banging in really consistent lap times here, running down 51 dead on that lap, so effectively matching Brian Caldwell, slightly off Mark Crader and Christian. Really good pace for Gerhard, who's joining us for this weekend and the Silverstone weekend at the moment, driving one of the Works Radicals. Really, really consistent driver, evaluating his options for next year, and I think enjoying his weekend here in the Euro Masters.
Certainly is, as he is currently set for a strong 6th place as our race leader Christian Jeffrey embarks on his 27th lap on the brakes into turn 1.
Really interestingly, a second in the favour of Mark Crader there, so in a 49.9 for Crader, so really starting to turn the wick up there and pull away from 3rd place, that pair. And I mean, the fastest men on the track on that lap were Yanni and Crader, so really starting to get their heads down. Crader still hasn't given up. He's got a bit of work to do if he's going to get to Jeffrey, and you'd have to think at this point Jeffrey's team will be on the radio saying, look, you've got 6 seconds in hand here, just manage it and this race is yours.
Yeah, there's nothing to be gained by pushing unnecessarily hard. There's also, as Formula One world champion could allegedly tell you also nothing to be gained by waving to the crowd a lap early and accidentally hitting the kill switch on the car. So he just needs to get his head down and keep doing essentially what he's been doing, as Jim Booth and Gerhard Watzinger have both just posted their personal best laps of the race. So again, as the fuel level goes down, the pace starts to increase. And in particular, actually, for Gerhard, given that he's a relative radical newcomer, showing a great level of fitness over the 60 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. A bit of experience in an SR8 out in the US, but turning his hand well back to the 3 here, and has got to grips with Hungary very quickly this weekend. And yeah, 50.7 at this point in the race, absolutely on par with sort of experienced radical stalwarts like Brian Caldwell. So Gerhard will be chuffed. Just trying to take this knowledge forward for the next 2 races.
So out of the final turn for Christian Jeffrey. He accelerates over the line. Now here is Yanni Herpier. He has come onto terms with Brian Caldwell. We've got more warning flags, and it's actually for Mark Crader for track limits. We've not seen that. So now Yanni into the clutches, or Brian Caldwell into the clutches of Yanni Herpier. And what can Yanni do here as the pair of them run down towards turn 1?
So the age-old adage is that it's one thing to catch, another thing to pass. Brian will not be an easy man to pass, very late on the brakes, and is a fighter at heart. So let's see what he can do, and let's see if he can keep Yanni behind him. He's got 8 minutes, so it's not a short stint.
And also, this is a circuit where all of the classic defensive driving technique can come to the fore. If you can just get the exit speed on a couple of key corners, there's not a lot that your rivals can do.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be. It won't be easy. You'd have to say Yanni's been very strong into the first corner, but it will be about just trying to intimidate Brian, try and get him to just be slightly offline and just get that upper hand.
So they head out of the turn. I think it's turn 7 that they've gone around, and they flick through 8 and 9 over the curbs. And it's amazing, really, the Hungaroring, when it was constructed, was state-of-the-art, but now it's almost feels somewhat old school in places, just because there are barriers actually within sight of the circuit. But then they pick up the pace through turns 11 and 12 out of 13. And yeah, Yanni Herpier using just another 2 feet of road, and it propels him onto the straight.
Yeah, Brian tightening up there and just not using all the circuit, but if he's going to keep him behind, he'll need to. So Still looking close. Yanni will just be looking for a really nice cutback and a really nice run onto the start-finish straight. So don't expect to see him run a little bit wider on the way in here and looking to cut back on the way out.
And if you're Brian, you're saying don't defend, just take the racing line, carry the momentum, make Yanni do all the hard work.
That's it. He's not close enough this lap, so Brian's got a good exit there. Doesn't need to go defensive. Don't move over, Brian. You're costing yourself. Yeah, he's realised he's not close enough, so he's moving back over.
And don't brake too late either, Brian. Just get the exit speed so you're all nice and smooth for turn 3. And that's what he manages to do. So there's nothing that Yanni can do just at the moment. The clock continues to tick down all the while. This is the fight for 3rd and 4th place.
Yeah, absolute cracker here. The Nielsen guys will be in the pits watching this. Both their cars just wanting a nice clean race, no contact. But Brian hanging on well now, just needs to make sure he only defends when he needs to. Yanni isn't close enough to make a move yet.
No, and actually, for that last lap, Brian has pretty much done everything he needs to do to make sure that Yanni doesn't get close enough to make the move, because it's through this sequence of turns, Yanni can close up all he likes, because there's not really any way past as long as Brian maintains a good level of pace.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just about not giving it away. Don't run wide. Don't outbrake yourself on the way into any corners, because that will hand it to Yanni.
Big bite of curb there for Yanni, wasn't it? As he's, again, for Yanni, the trick is don't push in the places where you really don't need to.
Yeah, that's it. He just needs to keep lining himself up for where he's strong. You know, he will be in the turbulent air around that last corner. Or Gerhard with a big lock-up, is that?
That's a huge lock-up from Gerhard, and he's, in fact, taken a trip into the gravel.
What a shame, because he was having a great run there. Some really, really good, consistent lap times. So he's getting himself showered in stones there, but it looks like he's going to be able to get back out of that and rejoin.
Yeah, so he got the stones rolling. As he rejoins the track, he should retains sixth.
Yanni wide. So Brian's got a really good exit line onto the start-finish straight. So Yanni, we saw him close up, but now he's not hassling him enough to make him defend again.
And Yanni's really struggling with understeer in the mid and high-speed corners from the turbulent air behind Brian. And that's what appeared to cost him through that final turn then, is you could almost see the correction of the car washed out underneath him. And this is why I love this stage of the race, where the different setups, the different strategies start to come into play, because Yanni went out of the traps that started this race like you wouldn't believe, and now possibly he's having to try and convert the podium on checks he wrote quite a while ago.
Yeah, for sure. And these two really pushing each other on now. You see that they are the fastest two guys on the track right now, the only guys in the 49s. So the two works guys at the front slip back into the low 50s. These two are pushing each other on. They can't afford to relax at all right now. So Brian knows he needs the sexes of his lives to keep in front.
And he navigates the chicane without any drama. And this is where you benefit, if you're Brian Caldwell, from having a driver like Stuart Mosley on the radio, talking you through the data, just explaining the finer points of the technique.
Well, that's it. He's got some great wisdom to draw on there, and he knows the car's quick. He's watched Stuart do the first stint. He's watched the car pull away, so he knows he's got a good car underneath him. He's with the Nielsen team, one of the best teams in the business. So he knows that he can do it. It's just about him keeping his head in there and keeping banging in the consistent sectors.
So they're about to start the penultimate lap of the race. So the question, therefore, starts to become, if you're Yanni Herpia, where do you go for the move, and how much do you roll the dice to overhaul Brian Caldwell? Now, this is better for Yanni. This is as close as he's been. Come and start, finish straight. He's in the tow.
Yeah, he's got a great run on him.
And it means that Brian is forced to cover the inside line. Yanni might just go for it here. Launches the inside. Brian leaves it very late and deep. Oh, that's well defended from Brian Caldwell, because a couple of years ago that may have led to a spin, but he slowed that down beautifully to block out Yanni.
Yeah, that was a nice move. So has to be careful just to make the one move under braking, but that was absolutely clean. He really did well to stop for the apex as well. So I thought there was a potentially might run wide, but yeah, driving really well so far. He's got this one on one more lap to do it, but Yanni is closer than ever.
Now, can Yanni catch Brian by surprise? That is going to be the challenge. Maybe even into turn 7 here. No, well defended again from Brian Caldwell.
These guys have both driven a good race. I just want to see this end clean, but Yanni certainly looks like he's ready to get stuck in if Brian gives him half a chance.
Yeah, and Yanni is now close enough, isn't he, to start to spring the element of surprise. Now, the one corner where Brian's not been testing himself is turn 13.
Yeah, let's see. He wasn't using all the circuit on the exit of 13, so he's making his life harder by not doing that. See if he does this lap.
Nope.
Again, no, he doesn't. And, you know, it's just giving Yanni the upper hand down the straight. Oh.
Here he comes. This is the best opportunity for Yanni. Goes for it. Does he slither out wide? Brian fancies his chances, draws alongside. Yanni's got the inside line as they climb uphill to the hairpin. And does he slither wide again? There might be a switchback on here for Brian.
Oh. It's close, it's close. Brian just needs to keep his nose clean now. Try and get a run down the start-finish straight.
Now, Yanni's been very, very quick in the straight line all afternoon, but Brian has got the benefit of the tow. Can he fluster the error as they head into turn 1 for the final time out of Yanni Herpia? That's going to be the task, but he's 2 car lengths adrift. He goes for it.
It's a big move. It's a big move.
Oh!
Oh, what a shame. They've come to oh, well, that's a real shame. Brian knew that he needed to make the move, but it was from a long way back. He did just about manage to stop. Let's hope they get to the end of this now.
Positively, they went into each other side on side, so I really hope those cars... Here we go, and, well, he came from a very, very long way back then, but he would have argued there was a hole. Now, here's Christian Jeffrey for the final time. So Christian Jeffrey, our race leader...
Completely unaware of all the excitement that's been going on behind him, but yeah, just rounding out his final lap, and he will be delighted. This is his... He's come off the back of a second place at Rockingham last weekend, which was really good for his UK campaign. Come to Hungary this week for a little bit of extra testing, and it really will be chuffed to be coming home with a race win.
Not unsurprisingly, the incident between Yanni Herpia and Brian Caldwell is under investigation, and just hope that they make it through to the end of the race, because it was a fairly hefty whack that they had with each other.
Well, the cars were still driving, so let's hope they're just getting around the lap and can get across the line to get the finish in the books.
Meanwhile, Christian Jeffrey has driven a very, very nice race, and he accelerates through, comes across the line, takes the checkered flag, and victory in the Radical European Masters at the Hungaroring. Second place goes to Mark Crader. Now here is Yanni Herpia, and he is going to take third place, and Brian Caldwell across the line in fourth. So they did both make it round to the end. So Yanni Herpia takes third, Caldwell in fourth.
Yanni's car definitely crabbing a lot when you look at it there. So something gone, I think probably an upright.
Oh yeah, Brian waves him through. And yeah, both cars tracking's a bit off now.
Yeah, I think that was, certainly some work for the team to do there to straighten those back out. But very sporting of Brian there to let him back by. Probably knows the move was potentially a bit optimistic. But at least they got across the line, and I'm sure had fun.
I'm sure they certainly had fun. Jim Booth has claimed fifth position. And then we will wait for Gerhard Watzinger and John Caldwell to come through and take the flag as well. But for Christian Jeffrey, you can only beat who you're up against, and Christian has really driven very, very well today because he stayed out of trouble. He played the long game in the first half of the race, and he's been richly rewarded in the second half.
He did, and as we said, he was the sleeper. He just sat there, kept banging in the consistent laps, no contacts, just kept it clean, and it really paid off for him. And he'll be delighted, and really nice to take his first race win, and take that back to Guyana with him. And just such a shame his dad couldn't be here today, who's been on his trip with him for the last couple of weeks in the UK. He would have loved to have seen this in person, but I'm sure he's watching online, and look forward to having you back with us.
So Christian Jeffrey takes the win from Mark Crader and Bradley Ellis. Yanni Herpia in third from Brian Caldwell and Stuart Mosley. Jim Booth in fourth, ahead of Gerhard Watzinger and John Caldwell. Just hope that any damage that Yanni and Brian sustained isn't too serious as of the slightly bent suspension parts for Artie rather than anything more substantial.
Yeah, I think that's what it will be. It was generally these cars are fairly robust, but it should be a fairly easy fix for them. But these two guys at the front here, Mark and Christian, will be delighted. So both Radical Works drivers, and really, really good weekend for them. And now they'll be carrying the penalties into the next races. So it will be the Nielsen guys that they'll have to try and overcome. So it will be weekend will be getting tougher for them from here.
For Brian, obviously you never ever made this mistake when you've been racing, Alex. But when you commit to a move and you think, come on, stop, please stop, and it doesn't quite happen. But nonetheless, excellent racing between them. So for Christian Jeffrey and Mark Crader, they get their weekend off to a good start. Yanni Herpia, I think a podium, a fair result really for what had been an excellent performance from him. And then Brian Caldwell in fourth from Jim Booth, who was consistently flying in the straight line in the SR8, and Gerhard Watzinger, despite that late wobble, still able to fend off John Caldwell by the time they got through to the checkered flag.
So a smaller grid after 2 weeks in the UK of racing than we would like, but ultimately really just delivering a great race there. That was exciting the whole way through, and such close racing.
Yeah, really enjoyable stuff from the Radical European Masters. Bradley Ellis goes to proffer his congratulations to Mark Crader. Christian Jeffrey enjoying the congratulations Radical Works team as Yanni Herpia extricates himself from the cockpit.
Yeah, really good stuff. You see the Radical guys there all congratulating Christian. They've done a lot of work with him this year, and the leaps and bounds in his speed have been easy to see. So really nice reward for him.
So let's take a look back at the race then, and off the line it was Jim Booth in the SR8 who shot through to take the early advantages. Behind it was 3 wide, and it sets up beautifully for what was some fairly frenetic dicing in the early stages. Stuart Mosley and Bradley Ellis going wheel to wheel, with Yanni Herpia and Christian Jeffrey watching and waiting behind. Yanni was pushing very hard in the early stages, mixing it with some of the pro drivers as Stewart was looking for that decisive move to get ahead of Bradley Ellis. And once he was able to pick his way past Bradley, it meant that he could ease away at the lead of the class and then the lead of the race, as Yanni and Bradley got a little bit close for comfort, on occasion disputing second position. Eventually decided in favour of Bradley Ellis after several laps of perseverance. Bradley mid-pit stops then caught John Caldwell, who got caught out at turn 13. Round he went, as late on, Brian Caldwell, looking for third place, went for the move on Yanni Herpia, and Yanni waved through in an act of gentlemanliness by Brian Caldwell to complete the podium. So it's Christian Jeffrey who won the race from Mark Crader, and Bradley Ellis with Yanni Herpia completing the rostrum in third, and Jim Booth claiming Masters class honours. So it from Alex Mortimer and Ben Evans, it's goodbye from the Hungaroring.